Tonight, Harley Quinn takes the high road by only implying that two geriatric characters are getting it on. Batgirl is like the fifth comic to have Stephanie Brown just sitting on the sidelines waiting to be used, and Justice League United wraps up its run by saying, well, I guess we're done. All that and more tonight on the not-so-new 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 224 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and I've got good news and news, questionable news, to be determined news. So the good news, at least for me on my side of things, is I've only got 8 comics to talk about. I have been waiting for this to start. For the entire time I've been doing this show, obviously I'm doing it 10 years after the fact of the New 52, I can see coming down the line how many comics I have per week for every week until the end of the show. And when we hit the DCYOU era, the post-convergence stuff, the number of times that I hit a single digit of comics starts going up. Every once in a while, there'll be an 8 and then a 7. I think there's one week that's like a 4. I love it. I'm so happy to finally be at this point where I can say, yep, I don't have to worry about spending my entire evening recording these. I can just knock it on out. Which leads me to the not so great news, the differing news. I'm feeling a little sick. Which to you means nothing. I might sound a little bit more stuffy, a little bit more nasally than usual. I know. Seems impossible, but trust me, I find a way. But the reason I bring that up is that anyone who's been following the show for a while now, I can't remember which years it was. I have to assume the second and third year. 2 years running, out of this 5-year show, I got COVID right at Christmas time. Like literally the week that the Christmas time episode came out, I joked around by coming into frame coughing both times. And I swear to God, if it happens again, I'm going to burn it all to the ground. I'm done with it. I'm so sick of this. Anyway, comics. Let's talk about that. So, like I said, we've only got 8 comics, one of which is a Robin War tie-in. That is We Are Robin, just to get that off the table. And the rest of it's just kind of normal stuff. So we have, in alphabetical order here, Batgirl, Harley Quinn, Justice League United, Martian Manhunter, Secret Six, the aforementioned We Are Robin, and Batman and Robin Eternal, our weekly series that is still ongoing. Also, I guess I need to mention Justice League United. That is the final issue of that series. It is 16 issues, and boy, howdy, did they think they were getting to 20. There is no way in hell this was intended to be the last issue. I mean, don't get me wrong. It wraps up the storyline. But they thought they had 4 more before this. So, yeah. Either way, definitely check those out. It's a shorter episode, probably. I don't actually know how long I talked. And every second I'm spending here in the intro is just extending it more. So, I'll shut up and we'll talk about Justice League. Justice League number 46, written by Geoff Johns, art by Francis Manapul. So, last issue we had all the different members of the Justice League were turning into godlike beings, and then we had all the one-shots where we saw them turning into godlike beings, and then we pick up with this issue where we get a bunch of panels of them turning into godlike beings, and Wonder Woman's saying this whole thing about Greek history or whatever, and how there was some goddess of the sea that became goddess of the sea because she didn't kill her son or did. I don't know. Regardless, she basically says like, yeah, and all that crazy stuff happened. And now similar crazy stuff is happening because my friends became gods. So, yeah, time to fight. And so we see Wonder Woman's going up against Calabac. Calabac just wants to know where the Anti-Monitor is. Like, he's just pissed off that his dad died. Lashina, one of the Furies, is fighting against Power Ring, Jessica Cruz. And Jessica is like, not fighting properly, and so the Ring, Volthoom, is like, shut up, let me do this or else you'll get us both killed. And so he ends up taking out Lashina. Kanto and Steppenwolf are being fought by Cyborg and Mr. Miracle. Cyborg tries to take Kanto, and Mr. Miracle's like, nah, I'm taking him. We got a history. And I don't know what the history is. The book does not make it clear. But Kanto's like, yes, well, you could always escape, but I couldn't, and now I'm locked into servitude for Darkseid. And then he stabs Mr. Miracle with a knife in the side. And just as he's about to finish him off, in boom tubes Big Barda. And she's like, Kanto's like, oh yes, Barda, you're one of the Furies. You decided to show yourself. Check it out. I'm gonna kill this guy, your lover, and I'll feed him to you with a nice Chianti. And then Barda just literally stabs him in the neck with her giant club, like straight through, and then electrifies him. So Kanto's down. Steve Trevor comes up to Mr. Miracle. It's just like, who is that? And he's like, that is my wife. And they're just watching her in awe. She beats the crap out of Steppenwolf as well. So she then goes over to help with Calabac. And then Mr. Miracle's like, hey, I thought I told you to stay out of this. This isn't safe for you. And she's like, I wanted to be here with you. Miracle says, well, we're going to be in big trouble if anyone finds out that we're married. And she just tackles him into a wall and starts passionately making out, where Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor are like, okay, all right, well, that's a thing that happens. So she just says, let them try to do something. So all of the forces for Apocalypse are like, oh, Darkseid may be dead, but we fight on. And Barda's like, why? Can't we just call things like, okay, we're square right now? And like, as long as we don't do anything to piss off the others, like we'll just call it square. Like, we're all good. And they're like, no, nothing will ever wipe off your betrayal, Barda. You were a Fury. And she's like, okay, well, I'll kick your ass if you come anywhere near us. And Calabac's like, everyone shut up. I just want to find the Anti-Monitor. I want it for my dad. So then we go to Metron, who's stuck in the Rock of Eternity for some reason. He's just like walking around. And all of a sudden, the mirror stops him. And this came up in Shazam's origin as well, but I can't remember who the mirror is. But talks to Metron, basically be like, hey, Metron, hey, look, just wanted to talk to you. Did you give up the chair just for your own, like, sense of well-being? Because you know if the Anti-Monitor ever sits in that chair again, and then Metron just punches the chair. She's like, shut up. I don't want to hear it. So then we go over to, I'm never going to remember her name, Lissa Black? That sounds right to me. Is fighting alongside Grail against some shadow demon things that are coming out of the Anti-Monitor's cocoon. And there's like, wait a minute, hold on. We're not a threat to the Anti-Monitor. We're fighting with him against Darkseid. Why is it attacking us? And Grail basically says, oh, it's not over yet. Hold on. So then we get Wonder Woman explaining, okay, we don't know anything about the Anti-Monitor. What we do know, though, is that the crime syndicate back in Forever Evil fought the Anti-Monitor. And we got at least 3 of them still alive and probably somewhere on Earth somewhere. So let's get them to help us fight and we'll be able to do something here. And the Power Ring's like, oh, well, Batman and Green Lantern were supposed to go do recon on the Anti-Monitor. Should we wait for them? And it's like, they're not answering. They're off doing their own thing, being gods, I guess. Don't worry about them. We got to take this into our own hands. And then Trevor's like, okay, well, Ultraman and Superwoman we got. They are in Belle Reve. Owlman is still a fart in the wind. We don't know where he's at. But they are such high priority bad guys, even the Justice League isn't allowed to get in. You are totally locked out. And Mr. Miracle goes, did somebody say locked out? I think I can help with that. So they're like, okay, cool, great. You guys learn what you can. Stay together. We're going to find the rest of the league. We being Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman. So they go off to do their things, and at this point, Steve and Wonder Woman have a moment, and he's just like, hey, Diana, you seem like actually scared. I haven't seen that in you before. And she's like, yeah, I'm terrified, man. This is some crazy stuff that's happening. Also, all this started with, like, an Amazon I've never heard of that gave birth to the daughter of Darkseid. Like, that's going to come up in my continuity a lot, it seems like. So Steve somehow manages to pivot over towards, like, so, you still dating Superman? And she's like, what are you? He's like, I just saw Mr. Miracle and Big Barda, and like, I like when you get rough like that. And he's like, what? So they almost share a kiss because Diana says that Superman is not a lover, but something more than a friend. And Steve's like, oh, well, I want you to know that I'll always. And then all of a sudden Superman just appeared, grabs Steve Trevor by the head, and just like, am I interrupting something? So we get a bunch of panels kind of in montage here. Wonder Woman starts fighting against Superman. Batman's just looking at pictures of the Joker. The Anti-Monitor's cocoon is doing something. And all the while, we see that this little ball of energy is coming out of the cocoon, and it floats over towards Grail, and he's like, yeah, well, they're going to try to stop us, Mother, but don't worry about it, because Mobius has separated from the anti-life equation, and now it is ours. And Lyssa's like, wait a minute, hold on, the anti-life equation, was that the whole point of all this? And Grail just goes, yep, because death is too good for Darkseid. And then we get Grail, the goddess of anti-life. That's the issue. It's not a bad issue. I like Francis Manapul's art. I like the way it's doing all that stuff. It's the same thing I think I said last issue, where it just feels like so slow. It's so trudging along of like, what is accomplished in this issue? Like, we have I'm pretty sure last issue we got this thing of like, oh no, we have to like stop the chair or whatever like that, and then they became gods. It's like, okay, well now we gotta like go do this thing and become gods or whatever, and then that just gets thrown away. And now we're doing this completely other separate thing of like, okay, well, now we're doing go find the crime syndicate, and we're going to also take on the anti-monitor, and now Grail has the anti-life. And it's like, fine. If you want this to be an epic sprawling story, I'm fine with that. But when you set up an objective, when you set up the idea of Team A has to go do this, you either have to show them succeed or fail. You can't just have them forget. You can't just have them be like, oh, well, now they're gone. So I don't know. That just annoyed me a little bit. And then, yeah, it's taking forever. So collectively, it's still good. I'll say a 7. It's, I don't know. That feels harsh for like such a high profile book. But like, if it weren't a high profile book and I got this issue, it would be a 7. So yeah. We Are Robin number 7, written by Lee Bermejo, art by Carmine D. Giandomenico. This is the next part of the Robin War story going on, and the previous part was in Detective Comics, where Grayson is teamed up with Jim Gordon Batman to investigate a councilwoman who's super anti-Robin, and then Court of Owls have captured all the other Robins. So this issue picks up with the story of the Flying Graysons and all that, and apparently this is Grayson just either remembering it or telling it to Gordon or whatever like that, but they're scaling up this big skyscraper. And Grayson's like, oh, what, are you winded, Gordon? You've been relying too much on your robo-suit, because he's just going out normal now. And he's like, yeah, shut up. So they go in and they break into the councilwoman's office, and Gordon kind of breaks down like where his line is, because he's like, yeah, look, these Robin laws are clearly bad. They're clearly an overreach and an overstep, but like vigilantism is also a law that I have always allowed to be bent, but I've convinced myself it's never been broken with you guys. And also at the same time, like, the line is blurry because obviously these kids going out and getting everyone in trouble is bad. It is not a good thing to have kids endangered like that. But like, there was a day where Batman showed up on my roof with a teenager in tow, and I just had to accept that. And I don't know, like, I didn't like the idea that you were going out there and putting yourself in danger, but at the same time, like, why is that so different to the thing that's happening with the Robins now? And Grayson's like, no, look, I get it, I understand. It's easier to justify one teenage vigilante than like 100 of them. And he's like, right, it's my job to keep these people safe. I can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. So at that point, Grayson's like, hey, you know how like we always expect these people to hide all of their illegal stuff behind like codes and like stuff like that? Here it is, all their illegal stuff out in the open. She's the one who funded the jail/cage that all the Robins are being kept in, and it's constructed without anybody's knowledge. So at that point, Grayson looks around for another hint of who would have funded this, who could have done this, and he sees a bunch of owl statues. He's like, all right, it's about the Gray Sun stuff, and it's about the Court of Owls. I got to go deal with that. And Gordon's like, all right, I'll go deal with the cage. I'll go help out the kids however I can. So we go over to the cage, and where we last left that was Damian Robin had forced a almost jailbreak, because he managed to get all the Robins out of their cage in order to be removed of their gear, and that's when they were going to attack. But then Court of Owls showed up and said, you dumb bastards. So we see that he's still planning an escape. He's back in his cage along with all the We Are Robin kids, and Damien's basically just chewing out Duke, saying like, look, me, Red Robin and Red Hood are all pros. We all know what we're doing, and we can like save all of us, including you rank amateurs. But like, you need to stop worrying about your friends, because like worrying about them is not going to help us at all. And Duke is basically like, you're the worst. Like, no wonder everybody hates you. And he's just like, whatever, shut up and stop your whining. Something's happening. And they look outside and they see that the Talons there's one Talon, and then like, I guess now the Court of Owls just has goons. They just have like henchmen. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely not Talons. And it's just like, all right, we've got Red Hood and Red Robin, and we want one of them to bear witness to the search for our new gray sun. And Duke's like, what the hell is a gray sun? And Damien's like, I don't know. This is a Gotham history lesson. Don't worry about it. And he basically says Red Robin and Red Hood are going to fight to the death, and whoever survives will be the one that joins us on that. And if they don't fight to their utmost, actual trying to kill each other, we'll start executing prisoners. And so Damien's like, okay, well, one of them is actually a killer, so that's a problem. And so they get into their judo poses, start fighting each other, and Red Hood is like going for the jugular. He's like, oh yeah, I've never been very patient about this stuff. So he jumps in, he starts going for it. Tim's returning blows equally. He's like punching Jason in the face, doing whatever he can. Eventually, as they're fighting, Damien is watching very closely, and both Tim and Jason like side eye up to Damien, and Tim throws a very specific punch, and Jason blocks it in a very specific way, and Damien's like, all right, that's all I needed to know. And then all of a sudden, it all happens at once. Damien tells all the kids, the We Are Robin kids, to jam their arms out of the cells and get ready to grab. We see that it looks like Jason has Tim by his hands and is like about to crack his back with his feet, but then he kicks him up into the air, and Tim uses his wingsuit and his acrobatics to get up as high as he can. Damien grabs hold of Tim, and then the other Robins also grab hold, and they start doing like a trapeze thing to get Tim up into the rafters and out of the reach of the Talons and whatnot. So it all works out to plan. Jason's cheering, and then all of a sudden the Talon's like, all right, well, kill him then. So they all start shooting up at Tim. They start shooting Jason. They start fighting their way through. And as they get up to the top, Tim's going for the master power switch, the master release, and he ends up freeing all the kids who were stuck in the cages. So they come down and they start beating up all the henchmen for the Court of Owls. I don't think it actually shows what happens to the Talon, so I guess he just bails. Whatever, he's out of it there. And as Tim comes back down, he talks to Jason. It's just like, oh, yeah, I think that stunt should put me firmly on top in the hierarchy of Robins. And Jason's like, I bet Dick would have done it faster. So all of the Robins start making their way up to the roof because they want to get out of here as fast as possible. They know the ground's probably not a good entrance point. And as they get up outside the top, they see that there is no less than 5 different Talons all standing there waiting, saying, well, you're all going to die. And that's the issue. It's okay. I said this on the last part, I think, or maybe I was just thinking about it. This event feels very aimless. It feels like there isn't a specific goal that we're working towards. It's just kind of the entire, like, prove the worth of the Robins to the city at large, which, fine, fair enough. But like, the actual goal is going to be the Court of Owls trying to get Dick Grayson to do something, whatever it is. That's the big thing here. Join them, I assume. In which case, like, all this other Robin stuff just seems superfluous. It just seems so like, okay, what are they doing here then? Are they just bodies? Are these just red shirts? Are they pawns we're gambling with? I want it to feel like the Robins are working towards a specific goal. And whether they succeed or fail is kind of irrelevant if you want to go a different route, and that's fine, but it doesn't feel like there's a goal. The goal feels so amorphous and so public opinion-y that it's like, okay, well then what are we doing? What is the forward motion here, as long as we're not focusing on Dick Grayson, because he seems to be the only one that matters out of all of this. And this issue doesn't do anything to change that. So, yeah, I'm going to say this is I'll say 7. I'll say a 7. It probably deserves a little bit less than that, but I'm going to give it just up to a 7 because it looks good. I at least like the way it's written. Bermejo does good writing here, so yeah, 7. Martian Manhunter number 7, written by Rob Williams, art by Ronan Cliquet. So last issue, he did it. He plunged Earth into nothingness and had brought back Mars, and all of his other aspects of his being, him being John Jones, were there, and they said, you screwed it up, now you got to fix it. So we start in the past, a brief flashback where John is looking at some young child Martian or something like that who had seen like a prophecy of what Mars had become, and he says that it became a monster. And we see he's standing in like some weird colored goop or whatever. So yeah, all of Mars just is this horrific hellscape, and like it was millions of years that Mars lived, and now Earth is going to die as a result of it being back. And as the rest of the gang is like, you screwed it up, you idiot, and they just start beating the crap out of him. They say, like, you're not a manhunter, you're a man killer. So the Pearl, who has changed from her human form into Martian form, is fighting against John. And I don't know if this is like a specific aspect of John, if this is the Martian Manhunter aspect or whatever, the weapon, it's here. Everyone else is looking on, just being like, okay, all right, so what's going on here? And Mr. Biscuits explains, we're on Mars, it's alive, it's doing its thing. The old man over there is Mold, he's the brain of Martian Manhunter, and the girl in there is the Pearl, whatever that means. So Daryl says he doesn't understand, and Mr. Biscuits tries to relate it to a romantic comedy, but then Daryl's like, but like, we're all the same person, does that work? And he's like, no, okay, I guess it's a bad metaphor. So as they continue to fight, Pearl calls out John for not being a hero, for not protecting the Earth, and he's like, I had to choose between genociding humanity or the Martians. It was an impossible choice. How dare you judge me? I didn't want this, but like, I am Mars. So at that point, Mold steps up and he's like, John, yeah, okay, I get you on the logical part, makes sense. Mars is sick and it's decaying. Like, look down, and we see that same goop from before, and he's like, oh god, it's a disease, it's just like before. So at that point, he's like, oh, not again, and he flies off. So Pearl's left behind. It's just, they all introduce themselves to each other. Everyone now knows who each other are. And then all of a sudden, they look up in the sky, and they just see Earth. And they're like, oh, hey, check it out. I guess Earth wasn't killed. However, it's on a collision course. It's right there. We're all gonna die. Both planets together. So, you know, that's a problem. But before they can deal with it, all of a sudden, dust clouds on the horizon. They look out, and Mold explains that the way that Mars was brought back was not through, like, oh, we've revived the dead or whatever like that. It opened a portal through space-time, and it literally brought old Mars, right before it died, back to now. It is just copy paste. Here we go. Continue down the timeline. So apparently this is the defense force of the Empire of Mars. And so this giant Mad Max looking crazy ass machines come out of the dust. They start attacking. Everyone goes running except for Mold, who's like, no, I'll fight them off. I can hold them. I'm a superhero. He's an 86-year-old man. He immediately gets run over by these ships. It's not even like, it's played for a joke. He's just like, boom, gone. So they Pearl tries to fly them away, but she's zapped down by some cannons. So at that point, Daryl gets up. He's still not Martian form yet. He's in his own human form. He's like, and he reaches for his FBI badge, and he's like, FBI, stop your vehicles and take me to your leader. And all the vehicles stop. Every one of them stops right in front, and then all of a sudden this masked person comes out with a gun saying, did you just say FBI? And Mr. Biscuit says, wait a minute, I recognize that voice. And the masked figure goes, oh my god, I don't believe it. And she takes off her mask. It's Alicia, the little girl from Mr. Biscuit's story who allowed him to escape and helped him out. She's now probably in her early 30s, and she is like scarred, and she is a badass, and she's like, hey, Mr. Biscuits, You said that you'd come back. You remember your little friend Alicia? Sure took your time. So we see John at this point. He's off in the deserts, and he sees Earth up above, and he's like, oh, I remember you. I wonder if the people down there on Earth are feeling the same way that we are now. The red thread is so close, so whatever. But as he's flying through the deserts, he sees that same child from before, from the flashback, and he goes down. He's like, hey, I did it. I brought Mars back. Are you real? And the kid's like, you didn't do the spell right. It wasn't complete. Now Earth is still here, and it's going to crash into Mars, and you messed it all up, man, and there's nothing you can do. And John has a spark. He realizes that he recognizes this kid, and he has this deep sense of loss inside of him. And he's like, oh, God, please. It's been so long since I've seen him. Just please stop. And then it turns out he was actually talking to a rock the whole time. It was all just a vision in his mind. And thinks he's lost his sanity at this point. He's like, well, I was a hero on Earth. I want to be a hero again, and so I will. So he goes into one of the cities on Mars, and he says, Mars, everyone, listen up. We've got a great crisis. You can see it up in the sky. The planet's going to crash into us. It's going to doom all of us. I'm not going to let that happen. I will protect you in the war to come. So Martian Manhunter is now hero of the Martian people. And then we cut back over to Alicia, who's like, hey, you look surprised to see me. What's going on? And they're just like, you were a kid like 5 minutes ago. What do you mean? Why else would we be surprised to see you? But then Alicia tells the other, by the way, she's working with Martians. All of the other people on these ships are Martians. She turns around and says, these three, they're all aspects of him, all aspects of the Martian Manhunter who cursed not only Earth, but also Mars. And so they start shooting at them, knocking them out. And it's like, look, we didn't want this fight. None of us here did, but we've been hunted and slaughtered for years here on Mars, and in the next few hours, we're all going to die, so may as well die fighting. And she takes aim at Mr. Biscuits, and everything cuts to black. Okay, sure, yeah, no, I mean, I think when issue 6 ended, I knew that like the rest of the story was going to be, how do we fix this? How do we go back to that? But I think what I more so wanted it to be was this idea of what do the different aspects of Martian Manhunter mean? Why was he split up? Like, what are we doing there? I'm sure that's all still down the road, but now we're getting all like timey-wimey and like weird space stuff, and it just feels like, a story out of Doctor Who. And that's not bad. I'm not saying that's like inherently a bad thing, but I don't know. I was kind of enjoying this story the most when it set up like a big idea and then started paying it off. Now we're setting up another big idea. This idea of like, oh yes, like the prophecy and like all this stuff and what's happened, why they're time vortexes or whatever that's managed to put Alicia 30 here on Mars for years. So I'm not opposed to it, but I think I'm going to enjoy the explanation and dealing with it issues more than I will the setup ones. So this one being set up is, I'll say a 7.5. It's good. It's not great. Art-wise, it's very well done. I really appreciate how it looks. But yeah, writing-wise, I think I'm kind of over the mysteries of this book, and I kind of want to just be like, okay, do something cool though. Like, just like fight a whole bunch. I want to see something badass. Give me that. Batgirl number 46, written by Brendan Fletcher and Cameron Stewart, art by Babs Tarr and Rob Haynes. So last issue was a wedding issue. We did a whole thing with Grayson and all that other stuff. Barely, like, this is a whole new thing, whole new work. We open up with Nadima and Babs going through all these houses in this block that apparently is riddled with crime, and they're trying to get answers out of some of the residents of like, tell us what happened, tell us your story. We're with the university, we're not with the government, we're not going to put anyone in jail, we have the methods to keep you guys safe without like reporting your loved ones or whatever. So what's up? And they finally get this old woman who's very hesitant, but she opens up saying like, oh, it's the whole area, they're trying to drive us out, there's these gangs, my kid is in one of them. Or sorry, my grandson is in one of them. His name is Dylan, and like he's a good boy, but he just didn't have any other options because of like all the stuff going on out there. And we see Nadima and Babs, they sit down and talk, and it turns out that these gangs are being used by building developers who basically want to force everybody out so they can level it and start putting up more high-priced things that are not as rent controlled as they are right now. So And the demon's like, yeah, we've hit up 3 different buildings. And then all of a sudden Babs freaks out. She's like, wait a minute, hold on. We only hit up 2. What do you mean 3? Where did this 3rd one come from? She's like, no, you were with me. We hit up 3. And she's like, I just must have blanked on an entire building. I am so tired. And I don't know why. I feel like I haven't slept in forever. Also, I've been having nightmares. That's new. So at that point, we cut to later on that night. She's defending the block as Batgirl, and she sees some gang violence coming in after a little old lady, and lady screaming for help. And then all of a sudden, Babs pops in and says, like, all right, time to go, especially you, Dylan. And then the kid who's Dylan is just like, oh, geez, oh, God, I got cold out. So he runs off. The rest of them start trying to fight Babs. They got, like, baseball bats, knives, stuff like that. When one of them has a knife and seemingly has to drop on Barbara, all of a sudden he gets tased and this mysterious figure comes up from behind. And that gives them the upper hand, so they fight together, scare off the rest of the gang, and Babs like, hey, great, thanks for the help. Who the hell are you? And this guy like pulls down a scarf. He's like, all right, I don't have a lot of time. My name is Lewis. This isn't what it looks like. I'm not safe here. You're not safe here. Meet me tomorrow down by the docks at 11 p.m. I'll tell you everything. And Babs like, neat. So we cut to the next day. I hesitate to say morning because she gets awoken by her roommate, who I'm blanking on the name of. I'm sure we'll get it. Frankie, there we go. Frankie's saying, like, you slept through, like, most of the day. Like, you're going to have to get up here. And she's like, oh, my God, I had so much thing I wanted to do today. I had to head off to the docks and grade some papers and all this other stuff. And she's like, oh, but I also had to meet up with Greg. And Frankie's like, wait, hold on, who's Greg? And it's like, oh, I knew him since high school. He's a guy. He said he was going to crash here while looking for apartments or whatever. And she was like, okay, well, as long as we're just opening up to each other now, check out what I did. And she shows the back of her neck has a cybernetic implant in it, which Babs is like, oh, you didn't. Oh, God, Frankie, how could you do this? It's so irresponsible. It's cybernetic implants so that you can go off and do superhero things or whatever. And she's like, you have a cybernetic implant that's letting you walk. What are you talking about? This is very hypocritical of you. She's like, yeah, but there's a danger to it. And she's like, I know that danger. It's the same danger you put yourself in every night. And she basically just wears Babs down and says, like, look, you put on the bat symbol. You made those choices. I'm making them now because I love Gotham and I love you. And she's like, all right, fine. So Babs finally accepts her as a partner and says, like, yep, all right, we'll take on the criminals of Burnside. But first, I got to go deal with this thing by the docks. So she goes down. They notice some movement, so they flip on the lights, and there's this guy, whatever his name was. I literally forgot within the pages, Lewis. And Lewis is like, hey, just to let you know, I got this gun, but it ain't for you. It's to protect me from all the different gangs, specifically the Hasegawas. And for anyone who knows the Catwoman run that just ended, it's the Hasegawas. So we see that, all right, the reason I wanted to meet with you, Batgirl, is because I need you to protect someone from all the gangs. She goes by the name of Spoiler, and Batgirl's like, yeah, I know Spoiler. We met. She was in an annual. We had a whole thing. He's like, oh, okay, cool. So the breakdown of like the final issue of Catwoman for that run was the head of the crime family. She got super pissed off because her father was murdered. She went to kill all the other heads of all the other crime families, just indiscriminately murdering all of them. Spoiler stepped up and said, hey, because she was being trained by a Hasegawa. She stepped up and said, hey, don't. And she summarily got rejected or whatever. Aiko does not harbor, Aiko being the head of the crime family, does not harbor any ill will. She's fine with Spoiler. However, there are some members of the family who see her as a loose end. And so now she is being hunted. She's gone deep underground. And also that gang that you were fighting earlier is part of their like sub-family. They're under the Hasegawa control. So you got to find her. You got to keep her safe. And maybe if they thought that chasing Spoiler would bring extra heat down on them, they might back off. So we see that because Batgirl already met with Spoiler, she's already got a tracker on her. They go and follow the tracker down to an alleyway where she's about to be jumped by like 15 gang members. And she's like, all right, well, it looks like the odds are even. So Spoiler leaps into action, starts fighting against all of them. And she's like, is that the best you got? And they go, no, we brought in a specialist all the way from Osaka. She's like, oh, great. Okay, cool. Let's see him. So this guy steps out wearing like an Oni mask, and he holds up 2 cards, one red and one blue. And Spoiler's like, what, you want me to pick? All right, red. And everyone cheers like, yeah, she chose red. Awesome. And they're like, what was the red? What would happen if I chose blue? And it's like, oh, well, if you chose blue, you die by suffocation. But red means blood. You're going to die by blood loss. So this guy unveils some swords in the shape of like Wolverine claws, and he starts swiping at Spoiler. Spoiler does manage to land some hits, but he just shrugs them off. And then Babs is like, well, I guess that's my cue. So she jumps in, kicks him in the face, and Spoiler's like, Batgirl, how'd you find me? And she's like, I have a tracker on you. Remember the annual? And she's like, right, the annual. So at that point, Frankie, controlling the motorcycle, uses it to take out the dude from Osaka, enough to give them some space, and then Babs and Spoiler make a plan on how to fight them together. It's a moment of beautiful teamwork, and they end up taking him down. But then the rest of the gang moves back in, and they're like, well, we still have to fight you. And Babs is like, hold on. The Hasegawa clan does not want this woman dead. Yeah, I don't care if you believe that, true or false. However, if you do it, you might piss off the head of the family. But if you do it, you definitely will piss off the entire Bat family. Do you really want that coming down on you? And the gang's just like, nope, all right, we're gone. So Babs offers up an apartment for Spoiler to stay in. We find out in a few pages that this is actually a crash pad for Luke Fox. He just has one of these, so she's just like, yeah, you can stay here, it belongs to a friend, don't worry about it, but like, you gotta stay the hell out of the streets. You're staying here until we can make sure that the hit on you is gone. Got it? And she's like, can do. So she kicks up her feet. We then see Babs goes out on a date with Luke, and Luke's like, yeah, she can stay there, no problem whatsoever, but you seem tired, you seem upset, what's going on, man? What's happening? And she's like, I don't know. I've just been so stressed with everything that's happened and everything that's happening, and I'm having nightmares. And Luke's like, what kind of nightmares? She's like, oh, well, I'm laying there on my bed, and then all of a sudden there's something standing in my room, and it's just looking at me, and I feel like it can stare into my soul, and then I just wake up, and it's not there. And he's like, oh, that's awful. Also, you're doodling something. What are you doodling? And she's like, oh, well, in that annual, there is a thing called the Negahedron, which was a absolute massively horrible thing that had to be destroyed so that it wasn't put in the wrong hands, and I've just been scribbling away all the schematics of it, because why not? I guess I should get rid of this. Probably not good to have this around. And Luke looks at it like, wait a minute, hold on, we can alter this and like put it on market, and if we do that, it can make you billions of dollars. And Babs is like, what? So all of a sudden she gets a text on her phone from Edema. Turns out it's a news broadcast of Dylan, the gang member. He's gotten arrested, and the news is like, oh, through an anonymous source that says that it has a bunch more information that it's going to be passing off to the police to arrest all these gang members. And it cuts to the little old lady saying like, the redheaded one said we'd be safe. Screw her. She's the worst. And then Baz is like, oh no. So that's the issue. It's fine. It's good. It's weird in the aspect of like, I don't know. I don't feel like I needed the whole breakdown of like, why was Stephanie being hunted? Because it's in continuity. Like, she's also in the Batman and Robin Eternal book right now, and she's not. So like, you could just say, oh, and then she's being hunted because she's a crime fighter, and like she's doing things that gangs don't like, and by calling them out, to tie it into continuity, I simultaneously like a lot because it is tying it into a larger narrative. I like that aspect, but it also feels so limiting. It feels like, okay, well, this has a very specific point where it can go, and it almost feels like it doesn't fit in with the other aspects that we're seeing for Stephanie Brown nowadays. So it's catch-22 there. Art-wise, I like it. You know, we're setting up a bunch of different threads here on, okay, we're dealing with Stephanie's stuff. We're dealing with whoever this Greg character is. I don't even know who that is. And then we're also dealing with the Frankie joining into battle with her techno implants or whatever. So collectively, a bunch of cool stuff. We'll see where it all pays off. For this one, I'll give it a 7.5. I think it's there. It's almost at the 8, but I don't know. Something about it was holding it back. I can't even put my finger on it directly, but it's close, and I think if the next issue does anything to improve, it's automatically going to get up to that 8. Justice League United number 16, written by Geoff Parker, art by Travel Foreman. This is the final issue of the series, and oh, you could just tell it wasn't supposed to be. I don't want to speak poorly of the issue, because it does wrap up a whole bunch of stuff here, but man, they intended this on going a lot longer than it did. So the arc, as it has been going, has been dealing with these things called breakers, They are weird things that we get an explanation for here, but the whole thing was that Adam Strange was stuck in Zeta space or whatever, and no one knew how to get him out, and that was kind of the big thing we were working towards. This is that issue. So Alana's talking to some off-screen people saying, okay, let's just recap everything that we had prior to issue 1 of this arc. And apparently her and Adam went to talk to Sardath of the Ranian science people or whatever. And Sardath's like, yeah, no, breakers, they're a thing. Turns out it's all a consequence of the previous arc, the Legion of Superheroes, where we teleported the entirety of the planet Thanagar. It turns out you can't just do that. Like, there's actual consequences to doing something that incredibly massive to space-time. And that's what breakers are. They're not like living things, but they are sufficiently advanced systems that can seemingly mimic life itself. So at that point, Adam's like, oh, okay, and you want the Justice League to like come in and help you deal with the breakers? And Sarah's like, no. They're not targeting us at all. We're totally fine. However, because of your teleportations with the Zeta beams to and from Earth, they followed the Zeta trail back to Earth. You guys are screwed. So that's basically where that all sets up. And they say that the first one was in Connecticut, and we get to basically see how that plays out. So Animal Man, Equinox, and Stargirl all arrive. There's a big like purple dome over the city, and Stargirl just crashes headfirst into it. But in doing so, she falls inside, which Alana has to go in and like grab her before she hits the ground, because otherwise she'd like break her neck. And Adam's like, Alana, why'd you do that? Now you're stuck in there. And they're like, it's okay, we'll find a way out. And Adam says, okay, but remember what Sardath said, absolutely no teleporting because the results would be disastrous. I'll go make sure other people don't get stuck in the dome. So he's going around and he's like stopping cars or whatever. Meanwhile, inside, for some reason, Animal Man and Equinox are also in there. So everyone else. And they go start talking to locals, and the locals are like, oh, yeah, hey, good enough for you to show up. I pay my taxes. Justice League should have shown up sooner. And they're like, we're not really a tax thing, but all right, look, do you guys have like anything weird happen? Do you see anything like strange or whatever? And they're like, no, not really. I mean, everything seems pretty normal. Until one kid comes up and be like, yeah, there's a whole house at the top of that hill that wasn't there before. It just showed up. And then everyone's like, oh, yeah, that's right. That house is definitely weird. That should definitely be looked into. And then one old timer comes up saying like, you whippersnappers don't remember, but when I was a boy, that house was there and it burned down one day, and now it's back in pristine condition. Darndest thing. So Stargirl starts hypothesizing. She's like, okay, well, it's probably like just part of the breakers thing to blend into its environment. It's pulling back something that was once there. So either way, let's go deal with this. So she goes and knocks on the door. A little man, a tiny little guy, opens it up, and he's like, yes. And Stargirl and the rest of the Justice League just bust their way in. And they're like, who are you? What's this house? What's going on? And he's just like, oh, my name is Abel, and I'm the caretaker of this house. And they ask, like, okay, Abel, how long have you been here? He's like, oh, well, hard to say. It's a whole thing. And so they start exploring the house. They don't care about him at all. But one of them says like, oh, we're going to make sure there are no innocents in here. And he's like, innocents? Oh, I don't think we have any of those, but be careful which doors you open. They unlock secrets. By the way, good point to mention that the title of this issue is House of Secrets. So for anyone who knows their DC lore, you got something there. So Equinox goes into a room, and in it she sees like old history of the Cree Nation, or at least some people who were banned by the Cree Nation, and says like, oh, they're branding him with this logo or whatever, and then pouring water on it, saying, oh, we're making our own champion to strike down their champion Equinox. So yeah, Equinox has some sort of villain or something. We then go to Deadman's origin, where he was a circus performer, and Stargirl is seeing this happen, and she sees some random guy shoot Boston Brand and kill him. And then we have Animal Man go into a room, and he ends up seeing a field where Pa Kent are picking up Clark Kent out of the thing. And he even comments like, wow, the Kents had a secret baby. That would have been big news like a month ago. And the issue says like, check out, Superman's identity's been revealed. It's in all the Superman comics. Don't worry about it. So they all reconvene, and they're like, I saw some weird stuff. I don't know what this is. What is all this? And they go and talk to Abel again. And they're just like, you must be the breaker. You're responsible for all this. And Stargirl just blows his arm off. And he's like, geez, no, look, this place is the House of Secrets. It's a whole thing. This has nothing to do with your breaker stuff. Maybe. So we go back to Adam, who's getting a bit more worried. The dome is growing. It's starting to absorb much more of the town. And then all of a sudden, Sardath pops up in a transmission. He's like, hey, what happened to Alana? She just disappeared off the map. I hope she didn't teleport. Remember what I said. Teleporting would be disastrous. It would absolutely work. It definitely would work, but it would also be a disaster. But it would work. And then Adam's like, all right, whatever. I don't want to stick around for this. So he zooms down into the bubble. And we see that everyone, like, the house is starting to turn against the Justice League. And then all of a sudden, Adam just busts in through the door, screaming Alana's name. And they're like, oh, hold the door open, hold the door, we got to get out. So they all run outside. But it turns out, in the interim, it changed to just another room of the house. And Abel's like, ho, you may think that was the front porch, but now it's changed into something else. And this house is all about secrets. That's its thing. So as long as you have secrets, that's what it's going to be. And Adam's like, all right. And he kisses Alana, says, I love you forever. And Alana's like, uh-oh, that sounds like a final sort of thing. And then he activates his teleporter, his Zeta beam, which straight up destroys the House of Secrets, seemingly. So Abel's taken with it, and all that's left is the Justice League United, and the Breaker's gone, everything's saved. But then Alana's like, yeah, and he was gone. We couldn't find him. I don't know where he went. He just totally disappeared. And so she started teleporting everywhere they had been recently. Anytime there was a trace of any Zeta thing, she would teleport there. And one time while she's teleporting, she heard the faintness of his voice. And so she messed with the settings, and she just kept on teleporting past that same point over and over again until eventually she managed to zero in on a weird ghosty version of Adam. And she's like, oh, you're alive. And he's like, I don't know about that. This seems weird, but like, I can see the fabric of time itself in the universe. Like, the breakers can be taken apart from the inside if you just like get the right perspective. Like, for instance, to take apart the breaker inside of Connecticut, we were supposed to figure out the mystery of why the house burned down. And the perfect team to do that would have been Detective Chimp, Riddler, Katana, and Professor Zoom. And Alana's like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't care about any of that stuff. I want to get you out of there. So we cut to modern day, and we see Alana's like, okay, does that fit with everything that you know about the situation? Everyone's like, yeah, it makes sense. So at that point, they say that the breakers are done. Like, we have dealt with them. They have not been a problem recently. And so Adam's been sending them out on much more normal missions, but he's growing more and more distant. He's not like talking to them so much anymore. And we see that they're on Ran, and Sardath comes out and is just like, oh, Alana, you brought along your gang. That would have been nice to know. And so she's like, okay, well, here's the thing. You asked us to record everything we could about the breakers. I never said what I saw in my secret room. And apparently, she went into a secret room, and she saw a college couple. And they're saying like, oh, the girl's asking the guy, like, where do you keep going for a week at a time? And he's just like, oh, don't worry about that. I couldn't stay away from you for any longer than that. And Alana recognizes the girl is her mother. And she's like, oh, who's this guy? I don't recognize it. This must be around the time you dropped out of college. And we see the guys being pulled away by like government-looking agents. And he's brought to the same location that the whole book started out at, the very first time that the Zeta beam pulled her off of Earth. And we see the guy is Sardath, and the government agents are actually just disguised people from Ran. Turns out he was running a science course to get to know the Earth normal people, and he got a bit too involved, wink, wink, and now the girl is pregnant, and wouldn't you know it, Alana is Sardath's daughter. Only people who actually knew any sort of continuity before New 52 knew that, but they didn't, so she gets pissed off, like, whoa, why didn't you tell me? And he's like, I wanted to stay with your mother, but, like, I couldn't, like, this is what it is. So it's revealed that he baited Adam into using the teleportation tech, basically to save Alana. He didn't want her being stuck out there, so he baited Adam by saying that stuff. However, he didn't know, he thought it would just like kill Adam. He didn't know anything about this, like seeing the beyond whatever. And so now he's running experiments on that. He's like, oh, it's a whole nother dimensional thing. It's a whole, like, we got to research that or whatever. But as they look at all the data that he's researched, Alana points out, wait a minute, there's a single point here that keeps coming up. We could pull him out of it through that point. And basically, Sardahat says, like, he might not like that. Like, he's a god now. He sees beyond these normal human limitations. He might resent you for it. And she's like, would you do it for my mother? And he's like, all right, yeah, I'll do it for your mother. So they pull back Adam. He comes in his big ghosty form, and he's like, oh, I hear a voice. It sounds familiar. And Alana just breaks into the big ghost form and pulls out normal-bodied Adam. And he's like, oh, I've been gone so long, I forget all these things, like how to breathe or whatever, but you didn't forget me. And she just kisses him and says, nope, and I never will. The end. It's not a bad book. I'll say that up front. It's not a bad issue. I don't even think it was a bad ending. Art-wise, I usually really like Travel Foreman. He was on Animal Man, and it really worked there. This one, it felt a lot more cartoony. It felt a lot more like cartoonish proportions, and it's not inherently bad, but I don't know. Some of the faces were just like, I'm not sure about that one. It works for Abel, but then like Sardath at certain points, he definitely just looked like straight out of an 80s cartoon. And then, yeah, it just kind of feels rushed for the storyline purposes. For the issue itself, it's fine. I don't have a problem with it, but it definitely feels like, this was meant to go on for like a trade and a half or like 2 trades worth. This never got collected in trade even. It was that shortly lived. But yeah, no, it was, it's just a very quick wrap up to the whole, oh, and turns out he's fine. We just had to like go to a certain place and there you go. So I'm going to say this one is I'll say a 7.5. I think I enjoyed it more than I didn't. It's definitely like an above average issue. The writing's still good, all that stuff. Yeah, it's just little things that were pulling it down from something like an 8, but still solid book regardless. Secret 6, number 9, written by Gail Simone, art by Tom Derenick. So last issue, we got some fake Atlanteans or some other weird looking Atlantean thing that are telling them to go destroy these white pillars in order to save Black Alice. They have to fight Aquaman on the bottom of the sea. It's a lot. There's a lot going on. So we open up with all the magic people who are gathering up. They see that like everything around them is melting in their weird magic palace, the House of Strangers. And they're all talking as Felix Faust and Cheetah arrive back. And he's like, yeah, we went to the hospital. That didn't go well at all. They turned Cheetah back into a rube. As crazy stuff going on around there. But they say, like, all right, well, she's already far too powerful, but we have to think of something because, like, some of us are running out of time. And Zatanna points over to Swamp Thing, he's on death's door, and he's just like, oh, God, the dark gods are coming. So then we go to the bottom of the ocean, and we get a 6-panel grid of Ferdy, ventriloquist's puppet, talking directly to the audience, just basically catching them up and saying, like, we have to destroy these alabaster columns or else Black Alice will die. But if we do destroy them, we might be unleashing these dark gods upon the world. Womp, womp. And then, like, ventriloquist picks him up and then he just, like, gives a little shh motion to the audience. And that's it. That's the whole bit. It's just to catch us up. So Catman's still fighting against Aquaman. We see that the Demon and Banshee are trying to destroy the column. It's not going well. Big Show, I always forget if that's his name or not. It's Dipney, but he's got Strix and is telling him like, okay, hey, calm down. But then in comes Porcelain, who says, hey, if that thing is super solid, if it's really hard, my power set is I can make it brittle. So back up. And Porcelain just shatters it into a million pieces. And at that moment, we get a tiny little panel of like this eldritch being's eye opening up, saying like, oh, there's a shudder felt all over the world, and he awakens. So Banshee, being super impressed with Porcelain's like, oh, what a perfect gentleman, and starts just making out with them. Catman's still fighting against Aquaman, and Catman's like, hey, the bubble that was made here to allow us to breathe down here is still flooding with water. maybe we can leave. And Aquaman's like, I know, just let me think. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm just panicking. He's like, right, let me think. We see the weird Atlanteans up top are doing some sort of summoning circle for the Elder Father, the bleeding eye of the star, whatever that means. It seems like it's teleportation to get the Secret Six out of there, because all at once they start, fading out. And Aquaman is like, hey, Catman, looks like you're leaving. Let me just talk to you, not as a king, but as a guy with a family. If you take out those columns, everyone else will die. Nobody will be safe and get to go home again. And Catman's like, let me think about it. So, and also it tells Aquaman he smells like tuna. And Aquaman's like, well, I like tuna. So they get back up to the surface and they're happy. It's like, oh, the Atlanteans, the true Atlanteans, welcome them back. So we cut over to the apartment of Scandal Savage, who is caring for Black Alice along with Ragdoll. Ragdoll's feeling empathy for the first time. Scandal gets a call on her phone from her 2 wives. It says, incoming call, my 2 lovely brides. And they're both like, oh, when are we going to get to see you again? We miss you. And there's like, yeah, we miss you. I miss you too. I'll join you as soon as I can. I assume this is Scandal Savage backstory from previous stuff I don't know about. But then all of a sudden, Black Alice starts muttering to herself, saying like, oh, don't trust the Atlanteans. And then she says some other weird stuff. And Ragdoll's like, hey, Scandal, she's muttering, and it sounds like she's talking backwards. And Scandal's like, oh, crap, that's Zatanna's magic. She could summon anything. What did she say? And she said, Noils de Drib, which backwards is bird lions. So as they walk back out into the living room, Black Alice is somewhat awake, and she is surrounded by lions with bird wings. So we see the rest of the Secret Six are like coming out of the ocean. One of the Atlanteans is like, congratulations, you did great. The next column is in a coal mine in Perdition, to which Etrigan's like, oh, I've been to Perdition once, and let me tell you, I had some fun there. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So they have to change into outfits in order to blend in because it's a very conservative town. Strix specifically asks for a prom dress, which they play for a visual gag because she still has her full like Talon costume underneath the prom dress. But they start making their way into town all dressed in like 1800s looking stuff. And as they reach the town, Etrigan realizes this is a different town than he expected. And a young girl approaches saying like, oh, hello, sirs. Do you have anything to eat? I'm ever so hungry. And they're like, okay, creepy little girl. What's up? And Strix offers up tofu dogs, which she's like, I can't read, but, have you come to see the mine? So we get a tiny little bit where Scandal chokes out the lion birds, and they talk to Black Alice and say, hey, you're just coming out of it. We got a lot to tell you. So we see that this whole town apparently has been frozen more or less in time. They've been forced into immortality. They cannot leave the town. They are not allowed to die. And it's whatever's in the mine that's making that happen. So at that point, they go down into it, and they see that eldritch being whose eye opened up earlier in the issue is named Managala. And he's like, oh, hello, welcome. The Elder Gods bless your mission. And he's got a giant alabaster column in what can be considered his mouth. And it's like, oh, hey, just go ahead and take this out and destroy it. And Ventriloquist is just like, well, why don't you just destroy it if you're so powerful? Why do we got to do it? And he's just like, oh, it is forbidden. My brothers who want to blot out the heavens, we were held back by these columns. We've waited for you for centuries. And Catman's like, maybe we shouldn't take advice from the blotting out the heavens, but all right, let's go for it. And then Swamp Thing shows up, and he's like, no, for real, you don't want to do that. It's a bad idea. I have to insist you do not do this. And Etrigan just burns Swamp Thing with his fire breath as everyone else jumps in to take care of the column. Maybe by virtue of it being inside the mouth of an Elder God, it actually goes much easier. It's super easily. And the Elder God's like, oh, okay, you actually did it. Awesome. You guys are going to help us reign in hell. Congratulations. And he looks over at Swamp Thing and is just like, oh, you're too late. We're gonna do it now. And Catman's like, whoa, hold on. We said we'd take out the column because we need to take out the column in order to save Black Alice, but we never said nothing about letting this Elder God continue to live. And so Big Shot lifts up the remainder of the column and punches it down into the head of the Elder God. And you just see all this goo go flying everywhere. And Swamp Thing's like, oh, all right, fair enough, but like for real, don't get rid of the rest of the columns, okay? That's kind of a big thing. And at that point, all the village people, yes, I know what I said, show up, and they're like, oh, Magnagala, you're finally taken care of. You know, the people in this town are oh so hungry. And they've all got pitchforks and these huge grins as they're going to go feed on the Elder God. So then the final page is Black Alice sitting with Scandal and Ragdoll being like, okay, so hold on. If I'm allowed to live, the whole world dies. If the whole world dies, then I die. Or if the whole world lives, then I die. Is that the basic thing? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. It's an impossible choice, and no one's asking you to make it, Alice. And Alice is like, no, I'll make it. Like, I have so many things I'd love to do. I'm only 16 years old, but like, if it's between that or letting the whole world die, I'm absolutely going to let myself die. And Scandal's like, okay, well, that's, you know, you're playing with your immortal soul at that point, because suicide's a mortal sin. And she's like, no, absolutely not. But you're going to kill me, Scandal. And she holds up Scandal's little blade gauntlets and says, please do it. So, yeah, Alice now has actual say in what happens to her. The rest of the group is still going to do something, probably, that's not very well advised, but, you know, whatever. I was always under the impression that it wasn't the fact that the columns were coming down that was the issue. It was the fact that Alice was still alive that was the issue. Like, the fact that the gods are there, yeah, that's a problem, but that's a separate thing entirely. It's the magic world is still going to completely fall apart as long as Alice lives. So maybe I just misread the story here, but like, I don't feel like them knocking out the columns is like really going to matter that much. It's just kind of like this timer thing that's going to make it so Alice can live past her like seizures and whatever she's having here. I don't know. It's a complicated story. There's a lot of moving parts, but I'm enjoying it. I'm thinking that, you know, the writing is funny where it needs to be funny. It's serious where it needs to be serious. That Ferdy on the fourth wall thing, maybe that was just to catch the audience up, but I'd second guess that page. I'm not sure I think it was necessary nor appropriate, but everything else, sure. 7.5. I don't see any reason why not. It solidly hits that mark of good, not great, but definitely worth a read. Harley Quinn number 23, written by Amanda Conner and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Chad Hardin. So last issue, Harley was divvying up tasks. Some people were going to go save her boyfriend Mason in prison, and some other ones were going to save Cy Borgman from a resurrected Russian woman who's now cybernetic and making threats or whatever. This issue picks up with her immediately getting a call from that Russian woman who is at a bowling alley, and she's like, oh, I'm not going to do the accent, but she's like, hey, Harley, you suck. And she's like, oh, who is this? I got like a dozen people who would say that. And then we see her bowling, and then all of a sudden Cy Borgman's voice comes through the phone because I guess he got hit with the bowling ball. And so Harley says, oh, is this Zina Bendamova? And she says, yeah, that's me. And so he basically says, yeah, I got Cy. He's at this bowling alley. Come and get him. Come and get us. And Harley's like, okay, well, I'm in Jersey. I'm going to be like an hour at minimum. And they start just talking about the toll on the Jersey Bridge and like the turnpike and all that. Whatever. Point being is that she lied. She said she was in Jersey so that she actually has the ability to stop home first. And she changes into her outfit that's, I don't know, it's a romper. It's just for the sake of getting to draw it, I guess. And she's like, yeah, well, I also stopped by in order to make a plan. And we see it's, I forget what her name here is. Hannah Quinn. Yeah, Hanu Quinn. Sure. She's the one who's palling around at this point. And she's like, all right, well, I also came up with a plan. Here you go. We're stopping to get a gun. I've also got my own. It's like a giant sniper rifle looking thing. And she's like, oh, well, I don't want to kill this lady. And Harley's like, well, I've already killed her once, so I think that's out the window for me. So they make their way down to the bowling alley, and Harley wants to do some recon first to see what they're walking into, so she gets a lift up to look through the window, and then she's like, oh, dear God, no. This is so much worse than I thought. Let me down. And she's like, well, we're done. Like, we're not gonna go in there. And she's like, what, you mean my uncle's dead? And she's like, no, he's fine. But like, there's a lot going on in there and you don't want to see. And she's like, I have to. And so she storms in, and then immediately there's screaming and yelling and stuff like that. Turns out in the hour between the phone call being made and now, Zena Bendamova and Cy Borgman started hooking up. They are now a thing because they have all this shared history together and whatever else. But Xena, seeing that they were spied on, breaks through a wall, starts attacking Harley because she's like, I may have forgiven Cy Borgman, but I don't forgive you for killing me. Hannah pulls out the gun and is about to shoot her, and she's like, oh, you must be Cy's niece or whatever. You're very beautiful. And she just breaks the gun in her hand, just being like, look, seriously, I'm cool with your uncle. Where everything's fine. I'm just going to kill Harley. And she's like, well, Harley's my boss, so please don't. We go back inside. Harley's hiding behind Cy, and Cy's like, yeah, just let her go. She's fine. She's not going to be an issue. So they start making out together, and Hannah's just like, this is gross. I don't want to see this. So yeah, they basically just get to talking and say, well, we're going to be out of the story now, because now that we're together, both of our respective governments will think that we're trading international secrets with each other. So they're going to send a bunch of assassins after us, and we're just going to have to spend all of our time fighting them off. So that'll be a thing. Bye. And so Harley says bye to them and whatever else. So then we go down to the prison, and we see the other part of her plan, rescuing Mason. She goes in dressed as Harleen, and we see Harvey Quinn, I'm starting to remember the names, are both dressed in civvies. They come in, and she's like, oh, I came here to see this prisoner, whatever. And the head guy's like, I don't think so. Where are you coming from? He's like, oh, I came from the mayor's office. It's very important. He's like, yeah, the mayor wants to see that prisoner? I doubt it. Let me give him a call. And he's like waiting for Harley to try to call his bluff. He's like, yeah, no, do it, call. Go ahead, do it. He's like, all right, fair enough. So he makes a call to the mayor's office. Turns out one of the other Harleys is intercepting the phone line. She's literally out on the telephone pole. And she's like, yeah, we just wanted to go check on his condition and make sure he has what he needs. Wink. We understand each other? Wink. And he's like, oh, I got you loud and clear. So he turns back to them, the Harley and Harvey, and are like, oh, you two are the nicest dressed professional killers I've ever seen. They're like, what? He's like, yeah, that guy, he's got it coming, right? So Harley, pissed off, beats up this guard, has Harvey steal his clothes and say, okay, you stay put here, hold off anybody that's coming in, make sure nobody comes back, I'm going to take care of this. So she does aerobics down the cell block for no reason, gymnastics, until she gets down to the showers, where a guard is watching a bunch of inmates beat the ever-living crap out of Mason. She beats up the guard, goes in. Mason's like, oh my God, Harley, save me. So she pushes away all the inmates that are shivving him, stabbing him, and they're all just like, oh, well, what a treat. I haven't killed a woman since I was put away 10 years ago. And she's like, all right, let's do it. So because these guys are absolutely cold-blooded murderers, Harley has no problem in the comic absolutely murdering all of them, and she does so in very brutal ways. Finally, we get down to the last one. Harley takes care of him, and it cuts down to Harvey, who is holding back two more guards from going in as best he can. And he's just like, okay, well, are you guys good cops or are you bad cops? And he's like, are you like good at our jobs or like good in the public eye? You need to clarify exactly what you're asking. Wait a minute, I recognize you. And seemingly they recognize Harvey just from his previous stint in prison. So they all get tear gassed. They call in over the radio asking for backup from like actual police to show up. And then Harvey punches one of them in the nuts. So at that point, all the alarms are going off. Everything's on lockdown. A bunch of cops are showing up. And Harley's like, don't worry, Mason, we're going to get you out of here. And Mason's like, Harvey's like, Harley, he's hurt really bad. If we try to get him out of here because of his injuries, like, he might not make it. We need to leave him for the cops. And she's like, are you kidding me? The cops are the ones that did this. And like, no. Those were the guards. The guards are awful. They're horrible. But if this many cops, a huge amount of cops are showing up, at least some of them have to be on the up and up. And those ones are going to be able to keep Mason safe. Like, we just got to go. We can't move him right now. So Mason's like, yeah, I agree. That makes sense. Please don't get yourself caught on account of me. So they share a moment. Harley sets up this whole trail of blood leading straight to the door where the police are trying to barge in to lead them directly to Mason as quickly as possible to save his life. Because again, he's bleeding out and about to die. And so they share a kiss, and she's like, Mason, I swear I will get you out of there. And he says, all right, it's a date. So the other Harley Queens, has a rocket launcher. She's on the other side of the prison. She ends up blowing a hole big enough for Harley and Harvey to get out of, and they make their escape. So we cut then to the warden's house, where Harley's got him strung upside down from his ceiling, and She's like, all right, now what did we agree to? And he's like, I'm going to tell them to transfer the prisoner to another prison outside of state because the mayor is the one who's hosting all these hits on him. And in return, you're not going to murder me and my children and my wife. And she's like, yeah, absolutely. So we see that the wife is also tied up, but the kids are just playing video games with Harvey. Like, they don't care. So yeah, at that point, they do a little, as they drive away, they have a bug on him to make sure he makes the call. Everything's good to go. And they comment like, okay, but like the mayor is still a problem. Like he's making it so that the gang of Harleys are not being attacked, but he's putting this hit out on Mason. What are we going to do about that? And Harley's like, I'll just have a talk with him. But at the very least, Mason will be out from his reach. He's going to be out of New York. So as they arrive the next morning, they get to Madame Macabre, Mason's mother, who's like, oh my God, Harley, did you hear? And she's like, oh, what? And it's like, they're moving my son out of that prison. She's like, that's good news, right? He's not going to be attacked. And she's like, no, they're moving him to Arkham Asylum. And Harley's like, crap. That's the issue. Not a lot of jokes. Surprisingly, and also just a very straightforward story. Well, okay, two stories. It definitely is just like, here's the Cyborgman stuff, and to be fair, there's jokes in that. But the Mason bit is played straight, and it's played for like, no, drama, intrigue, soap opera. So it's not bad. It's not a bad issue. I don't know. It feels weird to me that like the Cyborgman stuff happened at all. Because that was, I'm pretty sure, hold on, I got the trade here. Let me go back to the beginning of last issue. Yeah, we set up the Russian woman coming back, like, first thing in that issue, and then we do nothing with it for a while. We do some Mason stuff, and then we have, oh yeah, Cyborgman was kidnapped, and then, like, they're just gone from the book now forever. What? Why did we do that? I don't know. It's a writing style that I'm used to with this book, and if it were any other book, I'd be much more critical, but like it's kind of just what I've come to expect here. Storylines will come and go, like the turning of the clocks and sand through an hourglass. So I'm going to say this is a 7, and I'm calling it there. Batman and Robin Eternal, number 11, written by Tynion, Snyder, and Brisson, art by Fernando, Blanco, and Christian Duce. So, last issue we ended with Grayson and Bluebird, aka Harper Row, showing up at the home that they believed was David Kane's. And they came across a woman instead who knows Harper's secret identity and is called the Sculptor. And so immediately she's like, oh, Harper, you've been through so much. And she's like, why can you tell it's me? Is it my hair? Is that it? Is that why you could tell that like I'm Bluebird? Like, what is going on here? And Grayson calls out like, okay, where's David Kane? And it's like, that was all fake. I made up fake clues to bring you here, but I don't know where he is, but I can help you find him regardless. By the way, did you guys bring any cigarettes? Because like we're up here in Canada and Jesus, they suck up here. And when Harper says no, then all of a sudden she starts getting really upset. She's just like, oh, tell me what I should do, blah, blah, blah. And the Sculptor does some telepathic stuff and sits Harper down. And Grayson's like, oh, okay, you're a telepath. Cool. So tell me what's actually going on up here. And she's like, well, okay, why can't I get a read on you, though? What's special about you? And he's like, I work for some big people who want to keep their secrets secret. So you ain't getting in here. It's a safe at the bottom of the ocean. You got to be able to talk to me, use words. And she's like, okay, well, it's Mother. She needs to be stopped after you guys did all your stuff at the ballet. She's packing up. She's cleaning up loose ends. And unfortunately, I am one of them. Or at least, you know, I think that I am. So I need you to stop her so that she doesn't do what she did again to her children. And Grayson's like, okay. And who are you? Like, what do you do? And she's like, oh, well, I'm the Sculptor. I'm the one who molds the children of Mother into whatever form she desires. But, like, that's why I care about them, and I want this to not happen. So if you want to know how to find her, I have to show you. And she tries to do her telepathy stuff, and Grayson's like, no, that's not going to work. Like, even if you think it could work, I've got so many fail-safes, some traps up there, it could, like, put us both into comas. So, no, that's not going to happen. And then Harper's like, I'll do it. I got no brain stuff. Go ahead. Fill me, mind meld with me. So we see that this all takes place through visions of what was Cassandra Cain's life like. Let's get some flashbacks to that. And Harper and Sculptor are just kind of in the background watching it happen. So Cassandra's being trained by David Cain, who is Orphan. He is that guy in the white suit. We do get confirmation of that. And Cassandra's getting the crap kicked out of her. And Sculptor explains, yeah, that's her father. That's David Cain. Turns out David Cain was super devoted to Mother. He was one of the original children. He was one of the first. And David had an idea of having a child who the mother is kept secret. We don't know who that is. Having a child that was never taught to speak, never taught any sort of language outside of body language, and being able to read someone's intentions, being able to see what someone will do solely from the way that they move. And that is what Cassandra is. Just an experiment that David Cain is to see whether or not that can be the most effective assassin of them all. And after she gets knocked down and whatever, he pulls her back up, and it looks like he's being tender with her for a second, but then he pulls out a knife and slits her arm. And it's basically saying don't trust the lies. Don't trust what people say. You have to trust based off of people's intentions and stuff like that. So Harper comes up in her phantom form, whatever, and it's just oh, Cassandra, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. So they move on to the next bit where it's down in this underground room that Cassandra was never able to leave. It was called the nursery. And Mother supposedly knows everything that goes on. No matter what, she's got a hand in it. But David managed to keep Cassandra's secret. And the way that finally we get a tie-in of what did Scarecrow have to do with all this stuff, the way that those children were molded into being whatever is through traumatic events. It used to be you just did an actual traumatic event in front of them. However, they moved away from that and started using Scarecrow's fear toxin in order to manufacture fake traumatic events, so that way they didn't have to go through the trouble of it. But David Cain thought, that's stupid. Go back to the old ways. I'm going to actually traumatize Cassandra. So there's just this room full of slaughtered children that he's just forcing Cassandra to watch as he kills one by one, all of them. And once she became totally numb to the idea of death, that's when he sent her out there to fight, and she started proving herself over and over and over again against bigger and stronger opponents, until finally she was unbeatable in David's eyes, and that's when she was presented to Mother. And Mother's like, the hell is this? What did you do? And he's like, look, no, it's proof that the old ways are better. She's unbeatable. Give me a test against any of your modern children. She's going to be able to take all of them on. And Mother just gives David some side-eye and then backhands him. And Cassandra goes to fight Mother, but David pulls him back, and Mother's just like, you were my favorite child, and yet you what? You were plotting against me? You were working underhand of me this whole time, and you thought I'd be happy about it? I don't want you disobeying orders. I don't want you having your own freaking line of thought. You belong to me. And yeah, stuff's going to change. Stuff's going to get updated. Doesn't mean the old ways are good. We have to adapt. So you can keep your little experiment here if you want, but I never want to see her again. And so she storms off, and David's like, I'm going to show her just how strong you really are. We're going to have to wait for the right opportunity, though. So then they move on to the next memory, but it turns out this is a memory that the sculptor did not mean for Cassandra to see, or for Harper to see. And it's of Cassandra, who is in Gotham, and Harper recognizes the location, just oh, this is Gotham, we're in Gotham. And she hears a woman screaming, and then she goes to check out what it was. Sculptor's like, no, we gotta go now. And we see that Cassandra has taken this woman who's begging, saying that she has kids or a family or something like that, and Cassandra just murders her, just straight up kills her. And Harper's like, well, oh my god, why would you do this? And Sculptor basically says she has regret here. She absolutely does not like that she did this, and she has fought to escape this stuff, and she's making amends for what she did here. Do not judge her by this one thing here. So we go back to the nursery one more time, and Sculptor's like, there's one more thing you got to see, okay? This is important here. And we hear Mother's talking to somebody saying oh yes, you no longer have to rely on scraps. We've got the best of the best, more than 24 for you to pick from. And Sculptor's like, this is something that's going to be big for Dick Grayson, specifically about Batman. And we see Harper runs into the room where Mother's talking, and Batman says that he's very impressed. He had doubts about the whole program, but he wants to meet this heir that he's been promised. So Harper, in her dream state, screams out, "No, Batman!" But it's just enough to get a mumble in reality, to which Grayson hears, and he's like, "Oh, you said Batman. All right, we're getting out of this." And so he tases Sculptor to break the telepathic link, gets Harper back to 100%, and just like, "Harper, hey, what was going on? You were mumbling something about Batman. What was that?" And he's just like, "Oh, he looked like he was trying to buy a new Robin. I don't understand. Doesn't make sense." And Grayson's like, "What? Who was it? Who was the Robin?" She's like, "I don't know. You broke the thing. Like, I was going to see, and then you snapped us out of it." And Grayson just turns around to Sculptor saying, "You're all right. We're going in. You're taking me in now." And Sculptor's like, "Wait a minute, hold on. You said that absolutely would fry both of our brains." But he uses his hypnos or whatever and says now, and all of a sudden it triggers her telepathy without her permission, and they start tumbling through this hellscape of mental whatever, saying, "Bring me to Batman now." So Grayson's a little bit on edge, I think it's safe to say. I really do like this issue. I really do. I think the art style, mostly it's Fernando Blanco. Kristen Duce also does great work here. I really like the style of it. I like going through and we get these answers to Cassandra's story, while it also keeps many more mysteries alive about, like, okay, what was Batman's side of all this stuff? Who is the mother? Obviously, that's been answered in more recent continuity and also continuity prior to the New 52, so it's only really a secret if you don't know it. But no, I enjoy it. I think that this is solid stuff here. The only thing that feels weird to me is Grayson's characterization. He feels, I'm going to say, more angry than I expected him to feel. It makes sense. Like, this is something that's unraveling, like, the very basis of what he known of Bruce. But I don't know. I still kind of feel like it should be more under control, more, you know, what you expect from Dick Grayson. Aloof, very much just like making fun of the whole thing. I get this is a serious moment, but I still want to have those moments with him. So I'm going to still say this one's probably like an 8. I really do appreciate the art. It's very well done. And the writing is solid too as well. It's solid as well, all over the board. It's just that one little thing that's just kind of takes me out of it and keeps me from giving us like truly perfect or like very good scores. And that's it. That is all the comics that were put out by DC Comics this December 16th, 2015. And I'm still not feeling great. Do you remember that from the beginning where I said I was feeling sick? You might have skipped by it because I was kind of just talking for a while. Yeah. I'm not feeling good. So I'm just going to kind of wrap this episode up here. And then we'll see next week, the week of Christmas, the week that historically I have always had COVID. What's going to happen? I'm gonna down a bottle of Dayquil and a bottle of NyQuil, and I'm gonna let God decide. So next week we have 12 comics, and in alphabetical order they are Aquaman, Cyborg, Deathstroke, Gotham by Midnight, Justice League 3001, Justice League of America, Robin, Son of Batman, Sinestro, Superman, Teen Titans, Titans Hunt, and our weekly series Batman and Robin Eternal. So yeah, that's everything. Be sure to tune into that. I'm sure something in there will pique your fancy. Justice League of America's been pretty fine, so definitely check out that. Anyway, if you have any comments that you would like to add on any comics I talked about this week, last week, any week at all, you can go ahead and put them in the comment section down beneath this YouTube video. But if you're not watching the YouTube video, go ahead and do that, because I think the audio version is like 2 months behind, so you're missing a lot. But if you really are dead set on the audio version, we also have a subreddit and a Patreon and a Discord, and you probably should just focus on the Discord because that's like the only one I really have access to. So do that. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. Thank you very much for watching, listening. However it is you consume this podcast, be sure to give it a positive interaction, and always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.